Hi there, and welcome to another episode of NPA Sounds, where we dive into the world of film, offering you a behind-the-scenes look into different parts of the international industry. We'll be here chatting with experts from around the world, exploring their career journeys, sharing valuable insights and tips, and uncovering stories that bring their work to life. This podcast is brought to you by New Producers Academy. I'm your host, Kristen Dania, a film director and producer currently based in Barcelona. Whether you're just beginning or not, or just happen to be curious about the magic behind the scenes, there will be something here for everyone. Hi, Bonnie. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us today. Today, we're joined here by Bonnie Williams, speaking coach, pitch expert, and voice consultant who helps filmmakers and creatives make a lasting impact. From nailing the perfect pitch to commanding a room with confidence, Bonnie shares her insights on what it takes to stand out. Bonnie, welcome to today's show on NPA Podcast.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good. Cold. Good.
Cold. So is there anything else that you would like to add today on about yourself that I might have missed?
No, I mean, my company, or the name of my company, is Speaking with Impact. And I kind of do that on all different levels. So whether it's public speaking, pitching, or also doing co-production and during production, all phases of production. But
yeah,
we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Fantastic. And I would love to know more about how you started in the film industry, because from reading your bio and reading more about you on your website and online, it seems like that you've taken a lot of different turns here and there and have tried a lot of different things. And I'd love to know more about where it all got started from.
It's a long story. So I'm originally from New York, and I started as a child actress. So I started acting, I can't believe it, but at the age of 7. I started in my school doing after school theater things, and then a professional acting coach came and opened up a acting studio where I lived. So as a kid, I used to go there, and I think I was cast in like Mary Poppins. I played Michael Banks, the boy, and it was traumatic. And then I also did like some off Broadway stuff, and so I really. And then I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts as like I think I was 12 or something, and then studied acting and did theater and like small roles in New York, and then I moved to Boston and was part of a theater company. So I was an actor, director, and artistic director of a theater company. So that's how that went. And then somehow I ended up in Amsterdam, and everything changed.
And what was did you enjoy being a child actor, or was that something that you wanted to do?
Yes. I was not, I mean, my parents have really supported me, but I loved it because it was playing. It was really enjoy. Like it wasn't like when I grew up, it was more competitive and it was different. But as a kid, it gave me so many skills about people, about observation, about human behavior, and also when I worked in theater, like how to tell a story and I loved working in a team with a theater that everybody, all the experts got together to work on a common goal. And it was great. I really think, in fact, I now, like, it's just recently had a conversation with a parent whose child is interested. And I was like, great, child, do it. Definitely. It'll teach you so many skills. It'll give you confidence and all that.
Yeah.
But when young adults are like, I want to get into acting, I'm like, don't bother. So it's great for kids, but it's a hard business to.
Definitely. I definitely understand that. I know that side as well. Do you think that being a kid, because there's some sort of naivety and you have your eyes open to it all, that you don't even have time to think about the cutthroatness of it and the competitiveness and the rejections, and it's all just play.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I was ever a naive kid, but but it was more about the craft.
Yeah.
About the business.
Yeah. And how did you go from New York to Amsterdam? What was the leap?
Romance was the original thing that brought me over the ocean.
Love a good romance story.
Well, yeah, I mean, I fell in love with a Dutch guy, and I came to the Netherlands for a year.
Hmm.
I won't even tell you when that was, because but that romance didn't work out. But what I did fall in love immediately with, there was an English speaking theater company here, and
Hmm.
I got involved here in theater. So I kind of had that same community here at the beginning that I did
Hmm.
in the States, except in the States, we were sort of professional and we earned
Yeah.
money. And here it was a hobby. And so,
Okay.
and it became like a really difficult thing to really like. I was in, when I first got here, I was sort of adopted by a lot of a group of older Dutch male filmmakers. So I had
Hmm.
like I had roles, and then I worked with Pim de la Parra, and who created and initiated this whole minimal movie
Hmm.
movement, and a lot of it was done also in English. And so I got to work, but it never got to be like a real career. It
Hmm.
never got off the ground. Um, yeah, so that's how, and
And do
and
you think do you think that it's still currently um like it feels, do you think that if it's in the Netherlands it does still feel like a hobby in some of the scenes there versus like in New York?
oh, definitely
Yeah.
For English speaking, it's not. I mean, there's a few companies that have started, their private companies, and they're
Hmm.
doing their best. But I mean, but it's not the level that it is in the
In
States
the States.
or in England or in other English speaking countries.
Of course.
Just yeah, yeah.
And what was the step after actor to
So
now where you are now?
so what I ended up so it's kind of in retrospect it makes sense. So
Yeah.
not being able to be a creative actor here, I ended up
Hmm.
being a professional actor in sort of I want to say corporate business. It was I was at the forefront of a thing that now exists as a training actor, but
Hmm.
then it was just finding its way. And it was what I basically did as an actor is I applied theatrical methodologies and techniques to
Hmm.
enhance communication within organizations. So
Hmm.
and it was everything. It was either doing like simulations or role plays or being a secret customer or doing shows or teaching
Yeah.
people theater. All that kind of stuff happened in a way to really just help people communicate better.
Yeah. And this was both in the film industry and organizations outside the film
It
industry.
was not in the film industry.
So it started off in organizations outside.
Yes, it started.
Okay.
Yes, it started in different or in organizations. So
Yeah.
I mean, and then I had a period that I kind of left the film industry because I couldn't. Well, I couldn't make a living as an actress here,
Hmm.
and I accepted that fate. And then so I started doing this applied stuff and
Hmm.
using my craft as I thought. And
Yeah.
then it started with like doing that and then like coaching people with their communication skills and then doing team development and getting involved in organizations. And then I was like, I exploded because I didn't want to be part of that corporate world. I missed, I missed the creative world in that
Yeah.
sense. So, so I decided to go. So what was it? I'm actually an old friend of mine kind of said to me, "You should be a pitch coach," because I actually pitch for work, with people within the industry. But
Hmm.
I wanted to get back into the industry somehow, but knew I couldn't do it as an actor.
Hmm.
And the funny thing was, when I started out as a pitch coach, and that was many, many years ago, I had no idea. I mean, I knew how to pitch. I mean, I knew how to
Yeah.
teach people how to talk and how to pitch and present and
Yeah.
persuade or whatever it is. But as an actor, I always thought like, okay, so I came into a production during a casting. So I always thought, okay, so they've been working on this for a few months or something. I never knew everything that led up to getting to production. So there was a learning curve there that I had to, which was exciting. I mean, so that was like my first thing of really understanding the industry from the other way in. So.
And do you recall that first time where you realized that the pre-production, or by the time you were doing the casting, and then look back that you only thought it would take a few months to get to where you were? Do you remember that first time where you're like, oh, they've been 3 years or 4 years or 2 years or however long making this? And do you remember that first interaction or that first time you kind of got that realization?
I don't remember specifically, but I remember the phenomena of, I think I was like, oh, wow. Like I was shocked or surprised at that point. And I developed a sort of a new kind of respect for filmmakers, because it was like, wow, you have a lot of endurance and willpower and patience and all that. And that was something that I didn't know, and so I learned a lot about that. And I also realized like that most of when I started doing pitch coaching, and even now, which is most of the things that get started don't ever get made, and I thought, wow, this is as bad as being rejected for an audition.
It's comparable.
A lot more time, energy, money in it.
No, it's definitely one that, even if you get through the first phase, and then you can you get some money for development, then you go on to the next phase, you could still get rejected then. So to get greenlit is such a you got to have such a long-term vision, and hope, and with a bit of luck, because it's also timing. There's a lot of things that are outside of, I guess I'm experiencing it now. A lot of things that are outside of your control.
Yes.
But
and that is also, that's interesting, because I think that what I've developed now throughout the years, a better understanding of that, but also at the fact that this business, this industry, and I work internationally.
Yeah.
It's so based on your network. I mean, it's really based on creating and building relationships, creating opportunities. And it's a lot of times through people, because, I mean, I know that in Europe, so I work mostly in Europe or Asia or this, I don't really work in the States that much. But I remember from the States that it was, the funding was different. It's a lot of like private equity or studios. I don't even know how it works completely. But in Europe, and especially like I'm based in the Netherlands, and that's really the subsidy and European subsidy based, and now totally into co-production, that you have to, really expand your network and work together now. And I mean, and now I could see also in certain places that people are also bringing in private equity even more. So like it's expanding again. And that's, I think that's really fascinating to watch how the industry is growing like that.
I mean, it's very versatile, and resilient. Every year there's something new that happens, and the industry just kind of shifts along with it, and you either have to adapt with it or kind of fall short. And what do you think that there's when you're talking to these people that you're helping pitch at this stage right now in your career, who are you mainly helping now? Is it mainly producers? Is it directors? Or is it you said you no longer coach as much actors as you did in the past, but who are your primary focus targets?
So I primarily work through until now. I work through like organizations, institutions, festivals, development labs, institutes who target. So it's either the producers labs or filmmaker or screenwriters. I also work for a television institute. So it's like, and there's screenwriters. So it's
Yeah.
people who are either, well, it depends which lab or which institute or which
Hmm.
festival or which organization. Sometimes there's people who are just entering into the market. And there
Hmm.
are other people. Sometimes there are people who have been there for years and years and are still like working out how can I improve, like not only my pitch, because I do more than that. It's
Hmm.
more like about
Yeah.
network. How do you create?
Yeah.
How do you have conversations about
Yeah.
your vision, about your project, and
Yeah. And creating lasting relationships in this
yeah,
industry as
and,
well. Yeah.
and even being aware of that, because sometimes people are, and also understanding yourself to understand, like, well, what, it's not really about just going in and trying to find a sales agent or trying to find, it's
Yeah.
like, it's really about, like what you said, it's if you're in this, you're in it for the long run.
Yeah.
It's really about building yourself, building your strategy, building your vision, and then figuring out how to position yourself and how to behave, really. Yeah.
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 And what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen people do when building these relationships or trying to expand their network? Because that's something I think that we'd all be interested in. I'm sure I've committed one or two of these cardinal sins as well.
Well, I mean, I at a certain point, I was approached by so many people, like sales agents, commissioners, producers, all this, to say to me, please tell people when we're at an event, don't pitch to me. So now when I give like workshops about networking, the thing is, the golden rule of networking is do not pitch until you're invited to do so. And then when you
Yeah.
are, be ready, be prepared to be short and sweet, and understand
Yeah.
that, that like that it's not about you or your project. It's about the person you're talking to, and it's about
Yeah.
connecting, because that's what
Yeah.
we're talking about. And that's basically like what people, you don't learn that. I mean,
Yeah.
most of the people, like, I know people, it happened to me. It happened to me recently, where I'm
Yeah.
standing there and says, hey, so let me tell you about my project. And then I'm like, no, I don't know if I said that, but I feel,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, that's the big mistake, really.
Because I recall one time when I was, because I did a 1 year program at film school in Spain here, and I remember one time one of my teachers was talking about film festivals and how important they are, and how that you should always be ready with a pamphlet or with something to go around. And most of the time you hear this, and the first message you hear is be ready to pitch at all times, you know?
Yeah.
And because you hear these wonder stories of, directors who meet other well-known directors who get, who are all of a sudden get taken under their wing because they met at a film festival, and now they've gone on and done great things. But I've then go on to a film festival, pamphlet in hand, and it's like just straight no. um,
Because it's what you're pitching. So I
yeah,
mean, so like I always say things like, have your information available, so that when
hmm,
somebody says, oh, can you tell me more about it, that you
yeah,
have it. But the be ready to pitch is kind of like, be ready to connect, to
yeah,
really make contact, and to get, and if they ask you, like, you kind of have to sort of get a sense of who you're talking to, because
yeah,
they might be like, and you can't do that until you really kind of like have the conversation first,
yeah,
make the contact. Because, and then when they ask you, like, okay, what are you here with, or what are you doing, you
hmm,
kind of have to tailor and taper, or whatever, adjust, fine tune whatever you want, your message, whatever you want to say, to the person next to you. Because if you're talking
yeah,
to another director, or a DOP, whatever,
yeah,
you got to say it differently than if you're talking to a sales agent that you've wanted to talk
yeah,
to. So, and so that be ready to pitch is not like, okay, have your paper and say, this is what it's really be ready,
yeah,
and I think that's the other thing that I try to, like, impress upon people,
Yeah.
and that it's not just because you have this great project, which is your baby, or
Yeah.
that doesn't really matter.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
mean, one thing I remember being told a lot is that you might think that you as in me might think that I have a great project, but somebody else and most people won't really care
Yeah,
unless they care about you. That's what I'm starting to learn now. Is that
absolutely.
the people who will enjoy your project, who start believing in your project, is because they start to believe in you first. Because from what I see, is that um, every film right now or every story that's written is a different version of a story that has already been told. So there's no reinventing the wheel; it's just flavoring it in your own vision.
Yeah.
So that I feel like at that point you just have to you're not selling something new, you're basically selling yourself, you know.
Yeah,
um
yeah. You can come with me on my tours because because that's it. I mean,
yeah,
and it's one thing to learn it the hard way, and it's another thing to be prepared for it, or
yeah,
that you know that. And it's because like when you're out there, like it's one thing to be a filmmaker or director, writer,
hmm,
whatever. When you're in the creative process and when
hmm,
you're working on a team or whatever, it's another thing when you're out there at an event or you're like facing the industry.
hmm,
Then you're no longer that. What you
yeah,
are, then you become the ambassador of your project
hmm,
or your team or yourself,
yeah,
and I think that's like you got to practice.
yeah,
And it's true. It's exactly true what you said. I mean, people might not even like your project, but if they like you and they remember you, they'll
yeah,
probably want to either work with you or be
yeah,
open to at least listening to you. So yeah, I think
definitely.
this is really the key.
I mean, I think also that there's a part of it that, you know, and obviously I can only talk from personal experience, but I know talking to other colleagues as well as going to film festivals, especially, A-list film festivals, where the general public or the audience or the professionals who do come are normally or people of influence, decision makers within the industry. So walking into a room like that sometimes feels daunting, and because as somebody who might not have a feature film yet on their roster, then going into a room like this and trying to find the right people or connect can oftentimes feel very daunting and scary. So I wonder what advice would you have for people who are going to these film festivals and then feeling like that they're not being able to allow, that they shouldn't be allowed to be there, or
Yeah.
that they don't want to, that they can't kind of penetrate that barrier.
So that, I mean, I think like what you're talking about is what a lot of people feel. I mean, it is
Hmm,
daunting, especially if your goal is very result oriented.
hmm,
And I mean, and I think at the last workshop I gave, we came to the final conclusion that these people that you're talking about are also human too.
yeah,
and I mean, and that's also like it is really true. Like I talk to a lot of decision makers or whatever established people, and they're like, I'm in a conversation with somebody. They don't even ask anything about me.
yeah,
So and that's them being a person. So I think that like to realize that that's one. Uh, I mean, there's always the ulterior motive or wish, but the way
hmm,
to get there is, I don't think it's a straight road. I think that doesn't work. I don't
yeah,
think that you're going in there and wanting to like connect with this person because you want to work with them. It feels so what's the word, instrumental. I don't
hmm,
know if that's the word, but I think that to open yourself up and to be curious about somebody and like
yeah,
and to know that you're going to talk to somebody, and it's not because you want to impose yourself on them, but it's more like you want to understand maybe what would interest them or
yeah.
whatever. And it's like a different mindset.
Yeah. It's a different dance, I guess,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, and
And
it's hard. it's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, but it's also part of the job. I think it's
Yeah.
part of the job, and I think it's a skill that can be learned. That when
Yeah.
if you know you're going there, and I mean, I often say to people, make it a goal that you're going to talk to 5 people you don't know, and I
Yeah.
mean, just to practice, because
Yeah.
it's part of a skill set that you have to have until you found your tribe and have created your own, your opportunities and have met, then you can relax a little bit.
Yeah. That's really well said. Yeah, until you find your full tribe and you've built that kind of solid network that you no longer have to be the one that's necessarily knocking on everyone's doors or
Until they come to you.
yeah, yeah, that's the next step. Because it's also it is a skill set that I think is very very useful to build, and it's one that I think is like a muscle. It needs to be trained, and once
Yeah.
you know but yeah, that first time you knock on or you tap on someone's shoulder, what comes out of what should come out of your mouth? What what's the icebreaker?
Yeah, I don't think there's one, but what I always tell people is you have something in common right then
Hmm.
and there because you're in the same place at the same time.
Yeah,
So if you keep keep it real,
yeah,
sounds it should be on a t-shirt. But I mean, it's like, it's like it's a human person that you want to meet. You could either be hey, if you know who they are, you could just say, hey, I'm glad I run into you, or whatever. I don't know.
yeah,
I'm not even gonna try to say it. What I'm gonna stress is that you have the idea is to create a common ground,
yeah,
and starting off with like one commonality. So
yeah,
I would say build on that, and if
yeah,
you see
yeah,
somebody, just do the obvious. If you know who they
yeah,
are, you can use that.
yeah,
If you don't, and if you see, I don't know, if you see what they're
yeah.
wearing, people. The thing I know, and I learned this also about being an actress from the age of 7. People like to talk about themselves. People, that's their best. That's their most. That's what we know the most about.
Yeah,
And it's not like everybody really likes to talk about themselves. There are a lot of people who would rather not, but
yeah,
people know them. That this is their material. So
yeah.
I would say don't impose, don't infringe, but work with what you got in front of you.
And keep it real and put that on a t-shirt. Yeah. And speaking about no, and speaking about the note you just said about if you know who they are, you could bring that up. What would you say to people who think that they need to know everybody in the room and they need to know without or with knowing their whole film history or what projects they've been on? Is there room to make mistakes in this industry or not know who necessarily you're talking to? Because there is so many people. How would you go around that?
This is I mean, if there's room, I'm the winner.
Yeah,
Because because also I never went to film school. I don't know all the people who are doing things. I don't know everybody's frame of reference. I don't know when people mention things or mention films. I feel like an idiot most of the time
yeah,
when I'm in terms of that. But I mean, you can't know everybody. So I think the thing is about curiosity, you
hmm,
know? And
yeah,
if you don't know, you could always learn. And just because you know like what somebody has done in the past or does,
hmm,
I mean, if you do know and you can talk about it and you can connect on that level, that's great. But if you don't know, then you could always find out if that's what you're interested in. And also, what I was going to say is, like a lot of times, people who have like one-to-one meetings, and then they look up the person they're having a meeting with, and they see their role, and a person is not their role,
yeah,
So it's like this is all information that it's all information that if you do your homework, which you
yeah,
should, that you have at your disposal. But if you're standing in line getting a coffee with somebody and you don't recognize them and you don't know them, they could be like somebody really, really famous and
yeah,
that you don't know. So who cares? I mean,
yeah.
and and I think they might just feel really fine with it.
Relaxed.
Yeah,
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 yeah. Oh, that's very well said. I think that that's something that also I know that is I, that I've done and I've seen people do is pull your phone out right before, check out their IMDb or their quick bio, and then turn around and smile and pretend, oh, I've known you for a long time, but when I just looked you up 2 minutes ago. So I've definitely done that, but I definitely also need to learn to, you're not going to be able to know everybody.
So, I mean, that brings up something which I think is really an interesting thing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, how do you want to be seen?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and like, I would think that um, reaction is because you
Mm-hmm.
want to be seen as somebody who is like knows who they're talking about and all
Yeah.
that. But the question is that really important? Or do
Mm-hmm.
you want to be seen as somebody who can make contact with somebody or
Yeah.
can have a conversation and be open? I mean,
Yeah.
then you don't need to do that. So I think a lot of this, what I also really kind of try to talk about is like, how do you want to be seen as a professional, but also as a person? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's a two-way street. I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean, I don't know if I don't know how impressed I am about somebody who's read up about me
Yeah.
without connecting with me. I mean, you
Yeah.
could read up about me, and that could be a question that you want to, that could pique your curiosity.
Yeah.
But if you read up about me and you think, okay, so now I know what you do, so tell,
Yeah.
it's tricky. It's
Yeah.
tricky.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. I think at least from my side, I think I always definitely use it as just like a base of like at least knowing who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
But I've definitely, fallen ill to like, now I know who you are. I know who I'm talking to. But the more I've learned to kind of navigate the film festivals and other networking events in the industry, is curiosity always wins rather
Yeah.
than, because people can also smell desperation and mile away.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
so,
mean, I think it's also about like expectations that
mhm,
you have, and I really think like you got to set yourself up for like some kind of success.
yeah,
Like you're not gonna sign a contract, you're not gonna get like get a co-production
yeah,
going at a film festival or even at a first meeting or
yeah,
something. So it's also about like if you could just meet people and talk to people and be curious, and I think that's um, that then that's important. I mean,
yeah,
the other danger is people go to festivals and they just end up hanging out with the people they know
yeah,
because that's the comfort zone, and
yeah,
then there's a missed opportunity. So it's really about putting on your big person pants and going.
yeah, and talking to at least five people
Yeah,
every day that you don't
yeah,
know. I think
yeah,
that's a good task and a good challenge for those who think that it's daunting, and a
yeah,
good way to open up the doors and barriers to opportunities, like you said, otherwise would be missed.
yeah.
Um, and jumping now into to pitches, because we talked a lot about uh, relationships, networking, kind of
Mm.
navigating that world a little bit. Um, Now, if we jump to the other side about projects and pitching your projects, where do you first? I know because you normally work in from film festivals, institutes. At what stage are you brought on projects to help either pitching? Is it in really early development or?
So there's different phases. So like,
Hmm.
so I work at all different phases.
Yeah,
The pitch phase is normally early development,
yeah,
or but then also sometimes it's works in progress pitching. But I mean, it's in the
yeah,
development stage. I also work on projects when they're during production, but then it's not pitching, but it's that's a whole different bag of tricks. That's a whole different
yeah.
what you have to communicate about. But
Hmm.
I mean, but a lot of the pre-work is done. But for pitching, it's usually, I mean, some people, the early development is it's always challenging because your idea can always change and morph according
Yep,
to the partners that you get, which is,
yeah,
and and also sometimes for like it depends where you are. It depends if you have all the producers or all the funding in place.
yeah,
Then you're looking for then you're pitching something else. You're looking for other things. So it really depends
yeah.
on where you're at to talk about what you're looking for and what
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah, and are you normally also working with first-time filmmakers, or also very established filmmakers, or kind of or everything in between?
Everything in between. Everything in between, because I mean, even I work with a lot of producers.
Hmm.
So I would say like producers who have been producing for a long time and pitching for a long time. You could there's always something to learn.
Hmm.
Yeah, because not everything gets made. So it's
Yeah.
like,
So you got
and
to pitch a lot.
yeah, you have to pitch a lot, and directors too. And I think that I think that I've been noticing that directors have a different kind of like they people who are established directors. They think, well, what I don't really need to pitch anymore because my work has expressed has
Yeah.
proven itself. I don't know how true that is. I mean, to a
Yeah.
certain extent, it's true. You have a track record, but you're only as good as your next project.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, and I mean, and if you're pitching to because you're looking for new partners or new funding,
Hmm.
it's almost like you have to earn the right to be listened to,
Hmm.
and of course, you come already to a certain level. Like
Yeah.
people have a different expectation of you, but still, this is that's a new
Yeah.
project. It has new possibilities and new possible partners.
Yeah.
And I mean, and screenwriters, that's also really hard. That's the hard. I think I, I feel like that's the hardest nut to crack for pitching because
Yeah.
they're so entwined with their
Their
with
story.
their story, and it's
Yeah.
like I mean, it's hard to get it out and to like get out of
Yeah.
it and share it and not to take things personally. So that's
Yeah.
also, but yeah.
No, yeah. I think it's interesting to hear that that even established, whether you're a producer or a director or a screenwriter, will also have stuff to learn, and also maybe also make mistakes that maybe a newcomer would.
Oh yeah, I mean, and so what I also do is I consult on individually. So the
Hmm.
producers will come to me, or I'll work with filmmakers on their individual project, and every
Hmm.
project has a specification that if you like, you really need to pull out the core of that project
Hmm.
to be able to. So you can't ride on your laurels.
Yeah.
You bring them with you, but
Yeah.
like you have to be able like I mean, sometimes it's even a higher goal because
Yeah.
like, and I work with people like, and then there are producers who do film and television.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of more television series in the last few
Yeah.
years also. And it's a whole different, it's a different like perspective, or it's a different way of pitching, and
Yeah.
then it's also, can you connect with your audience? So sometimes you have to have a little bit more sensitivity
Hmm.
about the needs and concern of the pitching audience, and you have to
Yeah.
know your target or your viewing audiences. So there's like a lot that you have to be able to communicate,
Yeah.
and again, sometimes if you're so inside a project, no matter how long you've been doing it,
Yeah.
I mean, there's always room for improvement, even if you really feel comfortable about it.
Yeah.
There's always room to be able to tweak it because you never know who you're
Yeah.
talking to. So.
Yeah. And I think also it's such a task in itself, because even though your project is like your baby, or you've been working on for a long time, and now you finally got this first opportunity to pitch your project in front of an audience or a panel, to maybe get you to the next step. And you're rehearsing the line over and over in your head, and you feel confident. But what is there? You can still walk into a pitch session and kind of blank,
Yeah, well,
or not blank, but you kind of like you think you have it, but then when you get there, either you get thrown a curveball or you get nervous. What are some things that people can do to kind of like ground themselves, or
well, I think that I mean, like there's lots of tricks in breathing and things like that, but
Hmm.
I think a lot of it is in the preparation,
Hmm.
and then when you're there to realize like you're not talking to a crowd.
Hmm.
You're talking to just many individuals.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that the thing that disconnects is if you lose the connection.
Yeah.
If you start like getting like losing like it's a two-way thing.
Yeah.
You want the audience to, you want to know that you're being heard or that
Yeah.
you're being understood. And a lot of people put this like thing of, I'm going to just remember what I said and just recite what I know and all this.
Play.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
forget that what the whole point of what you're talking about is to trigger the curiosity or the interest of the people sitting there.
Yeah.
And you're not, and you have to almost put yourself in one of the seats.
Yeah.
And realize that when you're watching a pitch, you want to feel like they're talking to you.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's really about like the individuals that I think that that's a really big help to realize you're really only talking to one person many times.
One person many times.
Many times at the same time. But it's not, it's not a sea of people.
Yeah. And what would you say that the biggest mistakes are for the upcoming or the first time pitchers that you see you repeatedly do that you would wish that they would just stop doing?
Okay, so there's a few things like don't repeat the log line, don't repeat what I could read, and also getting lost in plot as opposed to story. And not be clear about like what the tone is or the genre or the feel is, so that like forgetting to say, oh yeah, this is a psychological thriller. Oh, I thought you were pitching a comedy. It's like not being congruent also, and also maybe to understand there's like lots of things that you could put in a pitch and to make this clear decisions about like where you want to focus. Like if your story is not developed, okay, so then don't focus, then give us what you need to know, but talk about maybe where it's from, or what the background is, or what the themes are, what your personal connection is. That's the other thing that now is really big in the last years. It's been the major thing is like be able to answer the why are you making this question, because what you said before is absolutely true. All the stories have sort of been told. Your story hasn't. So why you? What is it?
I think that's something that one thing I definitely learned, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same as I do, is that especially if you come out from film school, and if you've done 4 or 5 years at film school, and I only did a small 1-year stint there for a program, but you see a lot of people who come out of there and they're not necessarily pitching from a personal perspective. They're pitching from a very technical kind of A, B, C, D kind of planned out route of their film. And it's something that, I noticed, especially 2 years ago at the Netherlands Film Festival, was that the emphasis after we did our pitches was the emphasis on like the personal attachment to your film, and why were you the one having to make this film, and why could it not be another John Doe making it? And that is when the reactions of after that first conversation of hearing that and then trying to implement that into the structure of the pitches, the conversations become very different, and they become more engaging and curious, and because they're not necessarily asking questions about the film necessarily, but they're asking questions about you as a person that is going to make this film.
Yeah, because that's the drop. Like what we talked about before. Sometimes it takes years and years to do it.
Yeah.
So where is the drive? Where is the need? Where is it coming from? Because if that's anchored, then you're in it for the long run. But if it's all in your head and it's an idea, well, that you can let that go and replace it with another one, and that's less interesting to people. People want to anchor to your drive, and I think that's so important, and
Yeah.
that could change, and it could be
Hmm.
many different things. But I mean, but that's the most fascinating thing about it. Like
Yeah.
in the end, you're talking about the product, but in the process of it, you're talking about what we said about, you can't make a film alone. So
Yeah.
you always have to find a team. You always have to work together. It's a communal, collaborative effort, and
Hmm.
people don't necessarily get like hooked on the on the end product. They get hooked on the process of the people who are involved in it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, I know that of my own experience,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah. No, if you can feel that energy as well shift as when you're in a room and you're talking about the personal connection to it versus the technical connection or the
yeah,
technical aspect of a film. I think that's something that a lot of people can take away from is including this in their treatments, in their decks. Um, and do you also help on the treatment side and the decks of like or a pitch deck, or is it just kind of like the speaking aspect of it?
well, it's not just. I don't do the
Not
pitch.
just yes, yes, not just
I don't do the pitch decks, but when I mean the ideal scenario is to be able to talk about these kinds of things,
yeah,
and so that you can think about it, so that you can go back and tweak
yeah,
and what you write and what,
hmm
and I do, like, I mean, I work on pitch decks with the projects that I'm working on, which is
hmm
something we haven't talked about yet, but I'm
yeah,
also involved in a few projects, and then
hmm
it's about really pulling out the story and pulling out everything so that
yeah,
we understand, and then translating. I mean, one thing is translating that into the story you tell and the way you
hmm
tell it, but the other thing is like the visuals and what you show,
yeah,
and because that is part of also the pitch, which we didn't
hmm
really talk about, is like if you're lucky enough to be able to do a pitch where you can show visuals,
hmm
that's great, because that's the business. So if you
yeah.
could show what you can't express, or if you can show it better than talking about
Insane.
it,
Yeah.
like your artistic vision or the look and feel or things like that, so that you could bring somebody, and the whole reason for doing that is to bring somebody into your world and
hmm
to share the world, so that you engage, and that
hmm
and it's either when you're speaking about it, or in your pitch deck. That's also really
hmm
important.
So let's dive into the pitch session itself. The You just mentioned visuals versus and not having visuals. Um, where so yes, if you first of all don't repeat the things that people have already read.
Mm.
Should you be giving them like a refresher, or just know that they have read what they are
No,
aware of your
you
project?
can't make an assumption that people have read it.
Okay. Yeah.
But tell it. There's many ways to tell something, you
Yeah.
know. And also, I think that the something that's really important about this is to bring to answer the question that people are sitting there listening to, and they're thinking, well, what am I going to see?
hmm
You know, what
Yeah.
what is it going? So
What's
bring
the movie?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
bring me into the world. Like a lot
hmm
of times people talk about themes, and that's
hmm
great. But I I assume that the theme is pulled out of the story.
hmm
So I want to know the story, I want to know the theme, I want to know how it's going to feel, I want to know how
hmm
you're going to tell it. So I think that that's the most important. And if you don't
hmm
know, because sometimes you don't know, then at least you can help me understand the world that you're creating,
hmm
or the feeling that you want to give. I mean, there's all
hmm
different levels. So that's part of it. And you can do it by showing something, or by
hmm
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've experienced both. Having the opportunity to pitch with visuals and having to pitch without visuals, and it's definitely harder to pitch without visuals because you have to rely on being a wordsmith to kind of bring them into the world. um, but how would you then structure a pitch, or what would be kind of like a good kind of outline for somebody to just kind of
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to give like a pitch
of
workshop,
course.
because but I do know, like, there's elements. There's not a
Hmm.
structure, you know. And there's things that like there are questions that you have to answer that people you have to think about. What do they want to know? They want to know what is it, you know, what is the project, and why is it why is it relevant?
Yeah.
Why is it relevant now?
Mm-hmm.
What's your connection to it?
Yeah.
And why should I care?
And why should I care?
And
Yeah.
part of the why should I care is like, who are you making it for? What do you want to
Yeah.
say with it and all that? And
Yeah.
and also what do you need? And
Yeah.
basically that's it depends. You need to if you need to do this in 3 sentences for a quick pitch, or
Yeah.
that you can't possibly get all. And,
Of course.
or some pitches like formal pitches of like 5 or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Those are and those are elements, and it doesn't. There's
Right or
no
wrong.
formula. There's no structure. It's really you need to stay true to yourself and stay true to the project.
Yeah. I think the hardest question that I've encountered with answering is the one that you just mentioned is why should I care? I think that one is one of the most challenging ones because I know why I care and I know why other people where I'm from care or would care, but finding a reason for somebody who might not have an affiliation or a connection to it right away, finding a reason for them to care is one that is very hard to do. And most of the time, the people who are listening and going to be on the panel on your pitch, most of the time probably might not have anything to do with the film or the origin or the connection. Right. So it's finding that answer is one that's
and I think it has to do with them understanding who is the audience, who will see this, who are you making it for, right? And so if that's clear, and I don't mean like just the basic demographic, but what are you answering? You know, who is it for?
Yeah,
they can kind of like put themselves in that. They have to be able to say, well, it's not for me, but I understand why it's important that this is made. That's kind of where you want to get them, I think.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
No, definitely. I think that's a good way to kind of encapsulate that question to answer another question. And you mentioned briefly about that you're also involved on projects. So how does that look like from you?
So when I grow up, I want to be. I've started to so what I'm doing now for the first time is because I've never been through what I said. I've either been at the beginning of a process or at the end.
At the end.
And now I'm very interested in going through the whole thing because and understanding also what steps you need to take to get things done and how to collaborate. I think my specialty is communicating in all forms of collaboration and making sure that you stay true to yourself, but get your message across and function and live the life you want to live. So now I'm doing, I think what we're calling it is either creative consulting and or executive producing, but that's to think along at the stage of the story development and the project development, but also who are potential partners. Because what I also do, because of all the people I've worked with and everybody I know, I feel like my hobby is matchmaking.
Yeah.
So, and I really like to think about who do we need to be involved in this, and make that happen. I would like to do more of this.
Yeah.
That's kind of like where I'm going towards, because I think that's where I have a really good value add because of my storytelling capabilities, but also my industry awareness and audience awareness and people. So that's what I'm doing now a little bit more, and also trying to connect people. That's also really interesting.
Yeah. No, I'm sure a lot of projects can use that value of finding the right partners, and because that's
and I mean, I don't know all the players, absolutely not, but I kind of can think along with, well, what type of people? But the other thing I was going to say is that what I also what I'm also doing and is I've kind of developed these panels and
Hmm.
this thought process of the what I call the human side of international co-production or collaboration.
Hmm.
And that's like at every phase of a co-production, especially international, that like you come across things. So there's something in the development stage, and then
Yeah.
you get the contracts done and all that, and then you go into production, and you think, okay, we've divided the tasks and we know what we're doing, but they're not answering my emails, or I
Yeah.
don't, or whatever. So that's the communication thing. So I'm looking at like, is it a cultural thing? How can you do that? Or are there processes that you can build in,
Hmm.
systems that you could build in so that workflow is better?
Yeah.
Or and how do you resolve issues that come up, or how do you deal with issues that are so different? Like, we do it this way in France, but yes, but here in the Czech Republic it's so totally different. So
Yeah.
how do you come to terms where you're both where everybody's like understanding each other and moving forward? And
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that I also am
Yeah.
consulting on.
Definitely. And from just the hearing the beginning of the journey to where you are now, it seems that there's so many lessons that you've learned along the way that they all compound onto each other to where you are now. Do you think that there is like a lesson, whether it's professional or personal, that you've learned the most out of from the beginning stages of a child actress to now?
Yeah, I think the word that pops into my head is kind of like about integrity.
Hmm.
I don't know why, and it's about how do you like keep your eye on the ball and stay focused and stay true to
Hmm.
yourself, stay focused, stay true to yourself, stay open, and to realize that we're in this together kind of thing. And
Yeah.
this is what I've this is followed through in all the things that I've done. And I think
Yeah.
that's what I bring. And there's this thing like I sometimes call myself like the what is it, like a human behavior
Yeah.
specialist. But
Specialist. Yeah.
somebody told me I have like, what did she say to you? You have like laser vision, because you could
Hmm.
see through the gunk to see what
Yeah.
people really want to, what the message is, and
Yeah.
be able to pull it out and articulate it. And I think that that's the big thing that I've learned, is that sometimes people either they don't know what they want to get across, or
Hmm.
not, or it's just not coming out the way it should,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't behave, or and I think that this is the thing that I realize, it's all it's everything can be solved with a little bit of self-reflection.
Yeah. Amen. No, definitely. And and right now, there's a lot of people. Well, there's a lot of people that are probably love a good piece of advice on what would be the next step, or or yeah, just in general, what they would need to do to kind of keep building the blocks of their career. So, is there any piece of advice from your experience that you can not impose, but share with us?
I think we talked about it, but I think to just put it in capsule, it would be like, learn your craft,
Hmm.
do follow your passion, do what you do,
Hmm.
and realize that in this industry you cannot do anything alone.
Yeah.
So it's really about the advice. It's about how do you build relationships, and how and start with building your relationship with
Yeah.
yourself, and figure, and that's something. It's a process. It'll change also all the time. It'll change with experience and with age and
Hmm.
with location and all that. But I mean, I think that it's so important, and have fun.
Yeah.
And it's a hard one.
No, it's a definitely a hard one to to sometimes finding the fun and the joy in the journey can sometimes be difficult. As we know, it's such a long journey, a treacherous one at times. But it's definitely one that enjoying the process is one that I think a lot of people should try and internalize a bit more. And I think I also want to reiterate something that you mentioned earlier on, is that it is learning how to network, learning how to build relationships, and learning how to also sell yourself is a skill that can be learned. That is not something that is for some and not for you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite nice to reiterate.
I would never say sell yourself.
Okay.
I mean, because
that's something I would say.
I don't mean to correct you, but
yeah,
I do, because I think I try to say share
yourself,
because nobody's going to buy you. You might get money for it, but
no one's going to sell yourself. Yeah,
it's a really, and maybe even just that shift in mindset is, it's not transactional.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's a good way to also rewire my brain, because you hear so much about in the industry, you got to sell yourself, and it's like, so it's so encrusted in our minds. And I think I really like that what you just said about, it's not sell yourself, it's share yourself. I think that is something that I'm going to rewire now in my brain. and just to wrap this really awesome conversation up, we love to ask the guests a question about, is there something that you're actively currently learning about, whether it is, again, personal or professionally, whether that be a new skill, a new hobby, that you'd like to share with us?
Well, yeah, that what I started to talk about is I'm learning now the whole process. Luckily, I don't have to learn how to do it all.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to learn, but learning the whole process of from concept to distribution.
Yeah.
And just learning like what's involved and learning how to play the game or to understand. And I guess I'm learning patience, or I'm gonna certainly learn that it's not for me. So
Amazing. And is there anything that you would like to share about yourself, or where people can find you, or
Yeah, I have a website which is, as we speak, changing, because I am repositioning myself. Because as you've heard, I was positioning myself as a pitch and public speaking coach, but I do so much more and want to do so much more, and I can do so much more. So, but the website will stay the same, and it's www.speakingwithimpact.nl, because I'm based in the Netherlands.
Yes.
So, and and I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So find me, come to me.
Fantastic. Bonnie, thank you so much for today's conversation. It was such a pleasure. I know that for myself, I've definitely taken a lot of things away from it, and I'm sure a lot of people can as well. So thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. And I look forward to continuing my relationship with the New Producers Academy.
Fantastic, and we will do the same. If you enjoyed this episode of NPA Sounds, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay tuned for more conversations with industry professionals. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so let us know in the comments section who we should invite next. Follow New Producers Academy on Instagram to see what else is happening. Until the next time.